Andrew Klavan thinks women should be barefoot and pregnant and baking him cookies and get out of the workplace or something like that. He just left us dangling on feminism was a bad thing. He'll explain in a moment, but in the meantime, if you haven't gotten it already, Strange Habit of Mind, the latest thriller from Andrew Klavan, just for your New Year's reading.
Why should they be barefoot?
I don't know, but I never understood the barefoot
At least
part.
socks.
I think it means they can't run as far away when they're, I don't know, when we're chasing them. All right, so feminism was a bad thing. First, I think, again, always have to define terms.
That's right, that's right.
What is feminism?
Well, I think what feminism has become, and actually was in the beginning in certain strains, has become an attack on feminine values. It has become the idea that male values are the standard, and therefore women are only worthwhile if they fulfill those standards, the standards of ambition, of career, of getting, you're just a homemaker, you're just a mother, if you don't get out. And this was at the very beginning. Simone de Beauvoir said women should not be allowed to choose staying home to raise their children because, she said, too many of them will choose it. And my contention is much different. My contention is that during the Industrial Revolution, what women did at home was destroyed. If you read the Bible, you read the famous Proverbs, what is it, 32, Proverbs 31, I can't remember.
I'm Catholic, I don't know.
Oh, okay, you don't read the Bible,
of
course. But it's, what is a virtuous woman? Her price is way above rubies. And then it goes through what she does. She's a businesswoman, she creates clothes, she buys orchards, she buys land, she plants orchards, all while taking care of her family. All those home industries were destroyed in the 18th century by the Industrial Revolution, and that's when feminism basically becomes a thing, saying that women should have equal rights and all of these things that I agree with. Of course I agree that women should have equal rights, and we shouldn't have to make that claim. That is essential. But the making of homes, the raising of children, the creating of human lives and nurturing of human lives, which only women can rightly do, can fully do, is the core activity of humankind. Yeah. It is the core activity of any culture. It's where the culture is created, and it's where the future is created, and where the past is passed down. It has always been the role of women, and essentially when you go into native cultures and things like that, women, they say they know their place, but knowing your place is actually an important thing. It's not that your place is less than, it is that it is at the core of. Men are very good at promoting themselves. They give themselves awards, they paint them pictures, they build themselves statues. But what women do in the home is, to me, the core of any society.
But that did end up being the problem in Western civilization, wasn't it? That, you can't separate ego from a human being. We all have egos, and women have egos just as much as men. And we did just celebrate the men in our society and in our culture and our history without, it's hard. It's easy to celebrate George Washington for what he did. It takes a little bit more effort to recognize that Martha played a pretty big part.
And it's even beyond that, though. It's the thing that we celebrate history. We celebrate people who make history, and mothers don't make history. They make something else. They make the future. They make human beings.
And they make the person who makes history.
That's right. And they make the people. But it's not that history is not the end. The end is humanity. Is the human beingness of being human. And I think that the moment that we're approaching is a moment when people are going to divide into those who want to remain human beings and those who say, no, we can live in meta world, and we can live, in techno world, and maybe we can have babies and machines, and we don't have to have any kind of gender roles. That is a future, but it's not the only future. There is a human future as well, and I think women are going to be at the center of that human future. And so what I think is our values are skewed. Our values have gone cockeyed because of technology. We do this all the time. We're doing it right now with the internet. The internet is the biggest thing that has happened to humankind in I don't know how long, possibly since the fall. It is huge, and we're not really taking in how much of an act of violence it is to the way we communicate and the way we interact with each other. It doesn't mean it can't be assimilated, but it should be assimilated thoughtfully and in such a way that it preserves our humanity, not in a way that so-called transcend our humanity, which is actually falling beneath it. And so all of these things, I think feminism just got wrong. And it has essentially elevated a certain group of angry, dissatisfied, unhappy women who now speak for all the women who are making them miserable.
Well, and you can argue that it's manifest now to the absurd and dangerous point where young girls about to enter womanhood, prepubescent, are wanting to be male. The lesson that they've learned is wanting to be male.
And they're being erased. You know, people are saying, you know, that Matt Walsh's great line, "What is a woman?" I mean, was a brilliant line, because the answer is nothing to these people, and yet to me it's almost everything. To me it is the center of human life, and it's what men are about. Men are about this making of people that women do.
And there is a crisis of young men as well, a different kind of crisis, and I wonder if the two, I know that you talk about this a lot, and I wonder if they are related in terms of pornography and young men, and the ubiquitous nature of pornography, again connected to the internet. I remember, I'm sorry for exposing my 18-year-old. He just turned 18, but you know, a few years ago I had the talk with him, and we went through quite a bit. And I said, "Do you have any other questions?" He goes, you know, the internet filled in the blanks, Dad. And I was freaked out, because it does fill in the blanks. And I wonder how much, you know, the young men being obsessed with and able to access pornography at the level that they do right now, along with young women and their confusion about their role in this society with transgenderism, how those two might be related.
Well, think about the message of pornography, which I think is a toxin. I think that, you know, it would not bother me at all to have pornography censored, at least to the degree of keeping it out of the hands of children. We're making extensive efforts to keep it out of the hands of young people.
And it is literally in their hands right now. When you give your child a smartphone, if you don't have any blocks on it, they can see things that are beyond atrocious. They truly are.
So the thing about humans' male sexuality is it's very visual. It responds to the shape of women. You know, what women look like, their shape, and what their faces look like. And that's what pornography plays into. There's no inside to those people. There's no inside to the women in pornography. They have no inner lives. They have no souls, essentially. They're just shapes. And you hear this. This is not, I'm not making this up, that people then find that A, the women find that men now want them to behave like pornographic characters, and B, the men find themselves impotent. Why? Because you make love to a woman because you love her, and you love her because of her inner self. Ultimately, you know, I mean, pornography and prostitution have always been dehumanizing. This idea that sex work is one of the stupidest things that anybody ever said. Sex work is degrading, dehumanizing slavery. That's what it is, and pornography basically is an accomplice to that. It's an accomplice to making us look at one another as if we were just outlines, just shapes. And a lot of the culture is selling that message.
Yeah, and back to the transgender issue, especially when it comes to young girls, you know, we talk about how young boys can now access pornography. So can young girls. There's But when a young girl, let's say you're 11 years old, you're an 11-year-old girl, and you know you're about to go through puberty, you know you're about to, or you've just begun perhaps, and you're about to be a young woman, and you see pornography for the first time, and this is your first exposure to sex. If I'm 11 years old, I don't want to have anything to do with that. Or if I'm going to be in that picture, I don't want to be, you know, the woman in that picture, because it doesn't look pleasant in a lot of this pornography, and that might be driving this too. But see, that's the whole point. This whole transgender movement, every individual, these are all individual human beings. It's not a movement. It's not a mass of humanity. Each one of those little girls is a precious creature of God, and yet they're not allowed to have those conversations with a trained psychotherapist to say, why are you feeling this way? What is at the root of it? I mean, at the very least, we should do that, shouldn't we?
And yes, and what the hell is wrong with these teachers? We have very low reading scores, very low math scores, and these people think the most important thing they can do is go in and share their sexuality with these kids.
Thank you.
Something terribly, terribly wrong with that, and something terribly sick about it. And of course, we have a teachers union that's one of the most powerful entities in the country and almost runs the Democrat Party, so they're not going to oppose them. But this is stuff that has to be opposed, and I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm so happy with what Ron DeSantis has done in Florida, where he actually said, no, you can't do this. And he said it in such a minor way, like until you're 8 years old. 8 years old, like I think any teacher who comes in with this stuff should be arrested, basically. And so, you know, I think it's materialism. I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's telling people that the human person is a meat bag with chemicals inside. You know, and that's how we should treat each other, and that's how we can heal each other. And here's a pill. You're feeling sad. Here's a pill. Now you're happy. You know, all of that stuff is of a piece. And when you start to see the human being as an internal creature, everything changes.
Yeah. You know, one other thing about the internet is that we're here looking at each other face to face. This conversation would be completely different if it were FaceTime or Skype, or if it were, God forbid, you know, via text message. The art of conversation and being able to share ideas like this can't happen on the internet either. Not really. But we'll get to that in a moment. We've got more to say with Andrew Klavan. He's not going anywhere. Neither are you, because this is your Christmas present, right? It's a special show with Andrew Klavan. Keep it here. More to come on O'Connor Tonight.